Well, did you vote for a war with Iran? Because your elected representatives did vote for a war with Iran. On Wednesday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed House Resolution 559, which paves the way for a war with Iran over nuclear weapons. So here is the bill. The resolution declares that it is the policy of the United States that a nuclear Islamic Republic of Iran is not acceptable. Okay, interesting, right? So it's saying our marching orders from right now, we collectively have the value that we are going to do anything in our power to prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons, including, it says, all means possible. So what I think that means is militarily. We're going to get to that in a second. But I think it's interesting why we're singling out Iran here, because I want to ask this question. Why is nuclear acceptable for Israel? I think a lot of people don't talk about the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. In fact, Scott Horton calls it one of the things that is least talked about but most known in Washington. Well, how do we know this? I'm going to introduce you to this guy. This is Mordecai Vanunu, if you don't know him. We know him because he's an Israeli whistleblower. In 1986, he revealed that he knew about Israel's nuclear program because he worked there to the British press. For doing this, he spent 18 years in prison, even though there's no specific law against what he did in Israel. He says while he was in prison, he was subjected to extreme cruelty, including solitary confinement. He says he thinks that was the case because he's a Christian, that he had it worse because of that. Now, in Israel, they call him a traitor, but Amnesty International has spoken out on his behalf. They call him a prisoner of conscience. Take a look at this. Now, even though he was released from prison in 2004, he was followed by the Israeli government and arrested several times for what they called parole violations when he gave interviews to foreign journalists, and he attempted to leave Israel. In fact, he has continued to ask to leave Israel, and they won't let him. He served another 6 months in prison for violating this parole in 2007 and was arrested again for another 3 months in 2010. He has since sought political asylum in Norway. The Norwegian government was about to grant it, but then they got nervous that they would make an enemy of Israel, so they revoked that invitation. Same story in Sweden. He's been trying to leave Israel for years, but the High Court continues to prevent that. Take a look at this article from 2019, when he was denied permission to leave. So he is being kept there against his will for violating no laws as a whistleblower. The international community calls him a whistleblower and says that he deserves protection. This is, as Americans, we have laws on our books that protect whistleblowers. This is one of our fundamental shared values, our core values, in order to prevent corruption. So if we really stand for democratic principles, wouldn't we stand for this guy and tell our bestie over there, Israel, you got to let him go. You got to let him go live his life. But he has not been allowed. Now, all this to say, we know that Israel has nukes. We have known that for a long time. So also, it is against the UN Charter of Disarmament to provide weapons to countries that have nuclear weapons. So why all this rhetoric about how we absolutely are afraid of nuclear weapons, but only from the people we see? So go ahead, please.
I think it's hypocritical because we, the United States, are the only ones in the world that have actually used them on a civilization, on people.
Yes.
So why is it acceptable for us to have them? Like the world should be trying to disarm us.
Absolutely, that's true. Good point. Don't go looking at our past, David, as actual proof. We like to think we're the moral authority here. So where is the House resolution on this? Instead, it focused on Iran this week, which has repeatedly said that it is enriching uranium for nuclear power. The House resolution says that the International Atomic Energy Agency, this initialism that I always get wrong, but I'm going to try, IAEA, confirmed in May of 2023 that Iran continues to enrich uranium to 60% purity. Okay, let's take a look at the IAEA for a second, but first let's look at the resolution, because it says here, whereas the IAEA investigators found uranium products enriched to 83.7% in January. Okay, I'm not sure about that. Let's hang on to that for a second. and that enriched uranium to 90% is weapon grade, and that in January of 2023, Rafael Grossi, the IAEA Director General, we've talked about him a lot, says one thing is true: they have amassed enough nuclear material for several nuclear weapons. Okay, just keep in mind these dates, right? They're saying we knew this in January, and that's how long we've known that they did this. Now, the IAEA, this Rafael Grossi, is the same guy who just doesn't seem to know who's hitting the Zaporizhia power plant in what is now Russian-annexed, formerly Ukraine. They've been there, they've stationed people, they've seen the bombs, and they continue to say, we don't know. We know that it shouldn't be hit, but we don't know. So the IAEA, and especially Director Grossi, is not high on my list of people to trust. But still, let's pretend we do for a second. Because when he discussed this in March of 2023, he went to Iran and gave this press conference and was specifically asked about Iran enriching uranium to 60%. And his answer is very much, that's okay. See if you interpret it that way.
Have, for example, the enrichment activities up to 60% been in detail, technical detail, or have you been discussing this with heads of state you have been meeting regarding that it is hardly to explain an enrichment program to this extent with a non-military enrichment program? Have they been able to give you an explanation for that?
Well, in fact, they don't need to give me an explanation of why they enrich at 60%. What we need to ensure is that we have the necessary ability to inspect the activities there. They enriched at the levels that they declare. There are certain parameters, as you know, between an inspected state and the IAEA. They tell us this is what we are going to do, and then we perform the necessary inspections. So in that regard, in terms of motivations and reasons, which I believe is a little bit behind your question, we don't discuss that. For us, what is important, the only thing that matters is that we are able to inspect, that we are able to account for every gram of enriched material that is there. And this is the spirit of the exchanges, and we have been working satisfactorily in that regard. There have been other types of issues, and as you know, but they are not directly related to this particular issue.
Okay, well, that's interesting, right? Because what he just said was in March of 2023, did not seem concerned about 60% enrichment, whereas the new bill from the House says that he was concerned about it in January. What he's saying here is Iran is letting us in, showing us what they've got, declaring their enrichment, and we actually go and verify. So if he's not worried, why is Congress? Is it possible then that the U.S. is setting a stage for the war with Iran based on a false flag? Cynical? But let's just ask that question. FBI Director Christopher Wray, right on cue, warned that Iran has plans to assassinate current and former U.S. officials and is also planning a cyber attack on the U.S. He said this to a Senate committee on Wednesday. Watch.
As the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, the Iranians, for instance, have directly or by hiring criminals, mounted assassination attempts against dissidents and high-ranking current and former U.S. government officials, including right here on American soil. And along those lines, Hezbollah, Iran's primary strategic partner, has a history of seeding operatives and infrastructure, obtaining money and weapons, and spying in this country going back years.
Okay. Go ahead.
That just frustrates me to no end, because it's like, you say Iran's number one, but like just because you've eliminated us from the list, that like we need to be on that list and we need to be number one because we do everything he just said, and we do it in mass. We do it in more countries.
Right. Okay, David.
Yeah,
Thank
but we
you for
do it for
bringing
good.
That. Yes. Right.
Right.
We do it for good.
For democracy.
We assassinate and spy for good.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, David, because I want to ask you, who is the only nation to ever successfully use a digital weapon against another nation? that we know
Probably
about?
the United States.
It absolutely is the United States. And who did we do that against? Iran.
Russia?
Iran.
Iran?
We did this against Iran. So we're worried that they're going to cyber
We
attack
tanked
us.
Yeah, we didn't. We attacked their nuclear infrastructure.
We absolutely
And, like,
did.
Well, and that's
Yep.
and the
We
thinking
launched.
that, like,
let me just.
Okay.
Yeah, for context, it was a Bush-Obama era weapon that we used to sabotage their centrifuges of their nuclear enrichment facilities with malware that we installed on their computers that they could not find. So yes, go ahead, David. Ask your question.
Well, I was going to say, like, we tell other countries, like, you're making these weapons because you're afraid, because we have the weapons and we have used them. They know our foreign policy. They know what we do around the world. Why would they not want to build up defenses against us? But it's like, if you build up defenses against us, we will attack you.
Right. So if you're receiving this briefing from Christopher Wray and he's warning you about a cyber attack from Iran, an appropriate question would be, oh, do you think that's retaliation for Stuxnet because we launched a cyber attack on them? Do you think that may be the case? No one asked that question, and we got away with it. Oh, and here's for bonus. You want to go a bonus round, David? So
Let's
you
do
know,
it.
Stuxnet, or Stuxnet, I'm not exactly sure how to say it out loud, was launched by the United States on Israel. Who helped the United States with that? Who is our partner in launching and creating Stuxnet? Any guesses?
Ronald Schwarzenegger.
No. Israel. Israel helped us with that. So, we all got away with it. No one ever condemned us for this digital weapon. And now we feel comfortable accusing them of playing these dirty tricks. So, what happens is that confidence on the world stage erodes in your words and actions when you do things like that. And then right on cue today, Russia announced that they have withdrawn from the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Now, why would they do this? Because these treaties are worthless. Russia says that this treaty was never ratified by the United States. They basically, it was a contract and they sent their signed version over and we didn't sign it and send it back. That's essentially what they're saying.
They know, based on history, that even if it's ratified, we don't stand by them. We do not stick with treaties. That doesn't matter what treaty we sign, we break it.
Right. Yeah. So they're saying we're no longer going to be involved in something with rules for them and not us. Makes sense. They do clarify that this does not mean that Russia plans to conduct nuclear tests, but rather that it, quote, equalizes the situation in the field of nuclear testing for Moscow and Washington. So, nuclear war with Iran and an implosion of treaties with Russia around nukes. Did you vote for this? Do you want it? And are you buying these warnings about Iran? Now, the warnings about Iran go hand in hand with the war in Israel. Obviously, we've been talking about this for a long time, how the United States and Israel keep saying we think that Israel is connected to this violence from Hamas. We're going to find it and we'll get back to you. Clearly, they want a war with Iran. They've been saying so for a long time. If you do not want this, you need to tell your elected representatives because they voted for House Resolution 559, which escalates. Oh, one thing I meant to circle back around to, and I did not, is that the amendment says that the United States will oppose this by all means possible. Give me just a second to make sure I find this language, because I'm very confused on what that means, all means possible. Does that mean beyond a cyber attack, but military attack? Because I don't want that. I don't want to be dragged into war with Iran. Let me know what you think of this in the chat.
I mean,
below.
militarily is the only way that the war contractors are going to get rich, make more money. So they've got to get those stocks up, to get that profit for the end of the year and everything. So I would say militarily is the only way to go, unless they can justify a lot of money militarily for cyber protection, and then that's something we can't, track or even understand. So that would be like a blank check, but that's not going to get, missiles and Raytheon and all them any money.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what Edward Snowden did. He basically worked for a military branch, right? And he was a spy. Yes, militarily now also means, through digital weapons, given that we already successfully launched one by launching Stuxnet in the early 2000s. So, but that doesn't mean, it's not like you can sit there and think, oh, well, I feel safer now because it just would be war of computers, because those wars of computers can also mean turning off hospital infrastructure, turning off electricity grids. People die because they can't be kept on life support or be operated on or things like that. So this is scary stuff, you guys, and we have to fight against it and tell our politicians to stop this war rhetoric, or else we're just going to get more of it. So let me know what you think of that in the chat below.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.